A romantic horror movie about a creepy pair of violent 12-year-olds where one of them is a vampire? That's right. Today I'm talking about 2010's Let Me In and the psychology of Abby. Hello family members, I'm Megan, and welcome to the Fangirl, a web series that loves speculating on the psychological aspects of fictional characters. Today I'm deep diving into Abby, the 12-year-old vampire girl from Let Me In. Now I know this film is a little bit obscure, but it is very close to the original, a Swedish film called Let the Right One In from 2008. So if you've seen that movie instead, somehow, I'd say you're still good to watch this video. If you've never seen Let Me In, the Swedish version of the film has a 98% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The English version sits at like 88%, so either one, if you can find it, is definitely worth a watch. But today we are sticking strictly to the English adaptation, just in case you were curious. The movie is set in March of 1983 in Los Alamos, New Mexico. We have Owen, this 12-year-old kid who's severely bullied at school, and he also has kind of a rough home life. It sounds like his parents have recently gotten separated and they're about to get a divorce. So what does Owen do? Well, he plays with knives and tries to use a telescope to spy on his neighbors naked. Yay. Because of his disheveled lifestyle, Owen ends up sitting in the playground outside of his apartment just by himself a lot. Soon after the movie starts, this girl named Abby moves in and she starts sort of intermittently hanging out with Owen at the playground, but only during the night. I wonder what that could mean. Abby and Owen's relationship slowly blossoms into this cutesy preteen kind of thing where it's all like, oh, we like each other, but it's not sexualized yet. Which is kind of weird because Owen establishes himself as this peeping Tom, like right off the bat in the movie. Not that I want to see 12-year-olds trying to hook up, just saying it's kind of a mixed message. This young love sweetness is countered with Abby's father just violently killing people and dragging them out in the forest to drain their blood, which obviously is to feed Abby. After a few missteps, the father figure ends up being caught and he has to burn his face off with acid so no one can ID him. It seems like an odd thing to do, but that does help keep him disconnected enough from Abby that there's no risk of anybody finding out what she is. And if you couldn't figure out by the air quotes, her father is not actually her father. It's implied with a photo booth strip that Abby actually knew this man when he was a little kid. Like, he's not this creepy middle-aged man who fell in love with a little girl. They actually knew each other when they were the same age, so I guess that's okay? He kept growing, she didn't? Love is love? No, McGann, that doesn't feel right at all. But in terms of the movie, and not my personal beliefs, it does seem like this older fellow is following this love is love kind of thing, and he's been Abby's familiar for a very long time. And what's really intensely interesting is that after the dad gets caught, Abby shows up at his hospital window and he's just like, here, eat me, and she does, and he just falls out the window dead. No feelings, no remorse. So now, with Abby on her own, she finds out she basically has to move on because all the bodies are starting to pile up and the police are showing up at her house. And that means a heartbroken Owen has to watch his only friend leave. Then, for kind of unexplained reasons, Owen's bully Kenny decides he's justified to try and drown Owen, which prompts Abby to show up and annihilate the entire group of bullies. Then the movie ends with Owen on a train with a big trunk that, you guessed it, has Abby inside of it, and it's implied that Owen has now run away from home to be with Abby and take care of her. Now, I find Abby to be this fascinating character because she reveals that she's 12, but much like Edward Cullen, she's been 12 for a long time. And Abby seems to be a little bit disconnected from time and space, like she knows her mother died and that's basically it. She doesn't know her birth date, she doesn't know how long she's been alive. Really, for all intents and purposes, Abby seems to have the mentality of a tween, even though she's had decades, well, if not centuries, to mentally mature. And that's where I find her character really interesting, because if her mind is stunted to match her physical body, well, that's a tragic character that will live forever but never grow up. If you remember Claudia from Interview with the Vampire, she never physically got any bigger, but her mind was that of a grown woman. Abby's mind and body seem to be stuck. But then the more we sort of find out about Abby's fake father, the more I question what her deal is. Looking at dear old Not Dad, he appears to be about 50. And for goodness sakes, he carries a jar of acid with him in case one of his murders go awry. I don't think that's the normal maturity of a 50-year-old. But when it's time to use the acid, he unscrews the lid and really hesitates. He has to remind himself, for Abby, and then whoosh, self-made monster man. I mean, that's a special level of dedication. Then when Abby goes to visit him in the hospital, he offers her his neck to feed on. He has to know that's gonna kill him because he's seen her feed before. That's why he does it for her. It's a huge mess. But then Not Dad's limp body falls out the window and Abby seems mildly upset, but not really all that put out to lose her father figure. She was definitely a lot less into their bond than he was, since he was killing people, at least one a week, for years to keep her alive. And she was just like, meh, his death is an inconvenience. Familiars, what can you do? You can't care about them all, right? And there's this hospital detail, if you catch it, there's a notepad and the fake dad writes down something like, "I'm sorry, Abby." And not only is the handwriting atrocious, but words are misspelled. I don't think this guy ever went to school again after he met Abby. And when Owen comes into Abby's apartment and he finds that photo strip, I mean, it really makes it look like Abby and her fake dad were together forever, for decades. I tried to look up photo booths to get a general time frame, but apparently they came from the 1800s, so no help there. Now, I really doubt the photo strip was that old. I mean, maybe it was from the 60s at best, just based on how they were dressed. But it's also interesting because Abby is in those photos, even though the movie shows us she falls into most traditional vampiric categories. She can turn into a bat, she burns in the sunlight, she has to drink blood, and people she bites turn into vampires as well. Plus, she seemed to be using a familiar, so I would imagine that Abby didn't have a reflection either. And not being able to see yourself in a mirror should theoretically mean that Abby's picture can't be taken. So to see her physically in those pictures means that Abby was probably not a vampire until around the 1960s. Maybe Not Dad was there when it happened and he couldn't stop it, so that's why he felt obligated to stay with her and protect her. Or maybe Abby manipulated him into being a servant. It's really hard to say. Although based on the movie, it was probably the latter that happened because she's really good at tugging on those "poor me, I can't help myself" heartstrings. Now, feeding is a base impulse for vampires in this world. They can't seem to ignore it, especially if they're hungry. And the more hunger pains they feel, the more reckless they get, not caring who sees them ripping a person to shreds. So, to avoid being caught, it would be in Abby's best interest to have a patsy. You know, someone to go out and collect blood for you and then take the blame if they should get caught. So Not Dad was her shield. But why? What was in it for him? Assuming fake dad wasn't hypnotized or glamored for you trubies in the audience, you'd have to be so dedicated to someone to put yourself through all of that insanity. And when Not Dad can't deliver on a full meal, Abby flips out and goes into demon mode on him.
What am I supposed to do? Am I gonna go out there and kill myself? Answer me!
I mean, I'd maybe have that happen once before I disappeared in the daylight, never to be seen again. It's not like she can track him. The only way she even knew he was in the hospital was because of news reports. So if he got up and abandoned her, she'd be screwed. Well, sort of. Even when Abby goes out to hunt for herself, she shows that she is a very brutal killer. So she seems to be able to handle herself. She even lures people over with this "help me, I'm an injured, lost, sick, dumb, innocent child" routine. And so, you know, she's not stupid, and she can't totally be stuck with a 12-year-old's mindset, or else how could she possibly manipulate people as well as she does? Even with Owen, she kind of bats her eyes and plays coy with him. "Oh, I can't tell you about me. I'm dangerous. Stay away." Does Abby genuinely like Owen? Maybe. But she also has a servant who's getting very old and slipping. Not Dad won't live forever, and then what? Who's the next Patsy? Well, Owen fits the bill nicely. He's a 12-year-old boy who's already developing a knack for harming other people. He's got a sad, broken home, nothing to really give up, and a growing obsession with the one person who's ever been nice to him. Then Abby swoops in and saves Owen's life after this extreme bullying event, and suddenly Owen is indebted to Abby, so he goes away with her. Was that because he loved Abby or because he owed her now? Abby is really manipulative, and she seems to keep an upper hand in her other relationships. So playing up this sad, lonely, raw child who's left all alone in the world is like throwing catnip in sad, lonely, raw Owen's face. He's so blinded by positive attention that he doesn't even care anymore that Abby's a monster, and he commits himself at the age of 12 to follow her forever into the unknown. Now, maybe it's all sincere and genuine on Abby's part too, but based on the photographs with not dad as a kid, I'm kind of doubting it. This seems to be her thing, to seek out these loner young men who are just desperate to find some point or purpose in their life. And then she just brings them in and owns them entirely with this naive charm where, you want to protect the helpless little thing. But that girl, she is anything but helpless. And actually, I don't believe the movie ever covers any type of hypnosis, but if that is a factor in play, I would genuinely wonder if Abby didn't set up that whole drowning event. The bullying was going on the whole time, that's true, but to be like, oh, I'm gonna hold your head underwater, and if you can hold your breath this long, then you're off the hook. If not, I get to kill you. Or gouge out your eye, or whatever it was. It just, I don't see how these things equate. But what if Abby did something to Kenny so that he made that action so that Abby could swoop in and kill everybody, and then be like, come on, Owen, let's go. That would serve her purposes beautifully. And it would cover not only why Kenny suddenly went to the murder level, as well as cover why Abby was anywhere near the school when she had already moved away. I mean, she had already left. She was a gone girl. Why was she stalking Owen? Especially at school. Because it was a setup. But I will open the floor to what you guys think. Was Abby really mentally 12 years old for her entire existence, meaning she actually did need a big strong man to solve her problems? Or was she just pulling on heartstrings to try and groom servants for her bidding? I might be overthinking it, but that's literally my job. I might be overthinking it, but that's literally my job. Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that? Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share one or two on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos like you helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members.